Justine, do you happen to see it?
No, not yet. Give me 1 minute. I'm looking right now, Garrett.
Okay.
So close out of Be Live.
No, Be Live is the program. It'll be streaming on YouTube.
Got it. I see it.
It's on YouTube?
Yep.
All right, everyone. So let's, do you have that link, Justine, just to post on our Facebook page?
Doing it right now.
Perfect.
So close out of Be Live.
No, Be Live is on that, but it'll be streaming on YouTube. But mute yourself so we're not double. One second, Sally. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem.
Let's find our PowerPoint. There we go. All right. Here's our PowerPoint. We'll wait for Justine to come back. Give everyone a few minutes to transition their way over from Facebook to YouTube. It's a little bit of a change this morning. We're doing our best. PowerPoint. There's Justine. Hold on. And Justine is coming back in 1 second. And here is Justine. Hey, Justine, you're back. Can you hear me? All right. She is back in the mix. So hi, everyone. Sorry we had to transition from Facebook to YouTube this morning, but that's what it is. Sometimes life is unpredictable. As we move into our topic today, staying positive and productive in an unpredictable world. So you know how it goes. We're going to do our best this morning. So what we are going to talk about, as I just said, we have Sally Ryan here. If you've been with us in VETgirl before, you've seen Sally give many of our amazing leadership webinars. And we're going to start out today with Sally talking about being positive in an unpredictable world. And this is actually our first time streaming to YouTube. And as a change for us, we'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll do some YouTube streaming in the future. If this is your first VETgirl event with us, you know we do amazing CE webinars on topics: large animal, leadership, technician, real life rounds, small animal, of course. And we're certainly broadening our horizons. Stay tuned. We have some amazing upcoming news for the future as well. But it's a great way to listen, learn, get your CE from wherever you are. And we certainly know this is an incredibly important time to be able to do that. We also have our VETgirl forum. So if you have a case question, you want to vent, you want to chat, go ahead and check out our VETgirl forums. And also, you know, we're on social media right now: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out in all of our social media feeds. Now, this session is race pending. We wanted to get the topic out there as soon as possible and didn't want to delay with race reviewing, but you guys know our content is race approved. So this is what we're going to do. Comment on our YouTube feed, because we're on YouTube today, not Facebook. Take a screenshot of that, and then please email it to annemarie@vetgirlontherun.com. Once we get this race approved, it's pending right now, already submitted, we will send you your race certificate. And then after the fact, if you're watching this recording on the VETgirl website, not YouTube, Facebook, or other places, if you're watching on the VETgirl website, if you're a VETgirl member, there'll be a quiz underneath the webinar when you are logged in to get your race certificate and take that short quiz. But I wanted to thank you for being here with us today. Excited to have you on with us, and very excited again to have our speaker here with us, Dr. Sally Ryan. So Dr. Ryan, please give us a short introduction. I'm going to jump myself and Justine out of the mix so you can't hear our background noise, but we will be behind the scenes. And thank you so much for being here with us today.
All right. Thank you so much, Garrett. And I have to say, Garrett, I can tell you're an ER doctor by the way you just handled that technology crisis.
I appreciate that.
I would much rather handle a GDV than a technology crisis. I mean, talk about stressful. You did a super job.
All right. We are going to make you, Justine, we're going to mute you and mute myself. And Sally, I'm going to give you the full PowerPoint to work with. Let us know.
Okay, perfect. Hey, all right. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us today. What a timely topic, right? Dealing with unpredictable things in our lives, but it'll be really fun hanging out with you for a few minutes this afternoon. Just real quickly, my background is I was in emergency medicine for about 20 years, and I now work for IDEXX as a professional services vet. And I have the great honor of being a leadership instructor for VETgirl. Some of you may have heard my monthly leadership webinars, and it's one of my favorite things to do in my professional career. So that's me in a nutshell. So the topic for today is about staying positive and productive in this unpredictable world. And I think we can all feel pretty confident in saying that in the last month, our lives have literally been turned upside down with the COVID-19 pandemic. Everything is different today, I think both in our personal lives and in our professional lives. And we are bombarded with really difficult and challenging news on a daily basis. And so with all of that coming at us, how do we maneuver through this really challenging time? Well, the good news is that we do have a lot of tools and a lot of strategies that we can use to help us cope with this crisis, as well as other crises that we have to deal with in our life. And so I'm going to be talking today about 8 strategies to help us stay positive and productive and optimistic in a very unpredictable world. So I'll begin this conversation by talking to you a little bit about a personal crisis that I went through and what I learned from that over about 10 years ago. It was about 10 years ago in which I was a really busy young woman. I was the medical director of a company that operated ER clinics and really busy there and working as an ER clinician. And I had a young family, a couple boys and a husband, and I was very involved as a volunteer and involved with professional organizations. And I had a lot going on in my life. I was really busy. And I started developing these odd symptoms where I just had a lot of pain and fatigue and insomnia. And that went on for about a year. Well, of course, because I was so busy in my life, I completely ignored those symptoms. Well, one day in March of 2010, I literally woke up and was unable to move my body. And I had pain literally from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes. And you may be wondering why I have a dachshund on a picture on this webinar. Well, that's how I felt. I felt like a dachshund with a really bad back that was miserable, and that was just a picture of my life. And I wish I could tell you that it just lasted for a short period, but I had about a 4-year period in which I was very ill and struggled with a lot of problems. Well, ultimately, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. And over a long journey, I really started to improve. But what I learned during that time is that when you go through something that is so difficult, and this just really changes your world on many different levels, you have to develop some tools and strategies to deal with that situation. And a lot of the things that I learned during that time in my life, I believe are things that we can use today to deal with this really serious situation around the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's what we'll talk about today. And so the strategies that we're going to look at today are first, acknowledging reality and the emotions that come with really difficult times, monitoring and managing our self-talk, practicing gratitude, focusing on our zone of control, creating joy in our life, giving back, being creative, and staying focused. And so at the end of the discussion, if time allows, I would also like to ask you what your strategies have been when it comes to dealing with the COVID-19 crisis. And so as we're going along, if anything comes to mind, feel free to chat that and we'll share as much as we can at the end. So the first part is acknowledging reality in our emotions. And I think we all just have to be real in that we are really living in a very scary time. I like what Charlie Brown has to say about this. My anxieties have anxieties. And I think we can all really relate to that. We are dealing with all kinds of really challenging things. And with that comes a lot of really uncomfortable feelings. Anger and fear and sadness and frustration and anxiety, I think, are a few of the emotions that many of us are feeling. And when you think about it, really, a lot of us are going through a grief process. Some of us have lost jobs. Some of us, are dealing with some serious health problems. And so there are a lot of aspects of the grief cycle that many of us are dealing with right now. And when you think about all of the ways that we as veterinary professionals are impacted, certainly we are impacted professionally and personally. Think about health issues. Well, that is, top of the list, of course. We're concerned about our own health. We're concerned about our colleagues' health, our employees, our friends, our family members. Some of us are just concerned about being exposed. Others of us are dealing with issues of actually having illness or knowing people who have been ill from COVID-19. What about just the way that we operate in our veterinary practices, whether you work at a veterinary clinic or at a university or a veterinary industry? All kinds of things are changing in the way that we function. We're doing curbside care, we're doing telehealth, we're having major changes with how we're staffing. We're having problems with schedules, you name it. There are so many things just in our day-to-day operations in our veterinary practices that have just been overturned and changed just in a short period of time. And then how about the economic impact? We know that we're seeing decline in client visits, and with that, decline in revenue. And some clinics are closed. Some clinics are not operating at full capacity. And so not only do we have all those other issues to deal with, but we're concerned about the financial impact of the COVID-19. And then what about the personal impact? About 5 minutes before I got on this with Justine and Garrett, their children joined them online. And so a lot of us are trying to work remotely, work at home with children, with husbands, with partners, with all kinds of activity going on in the background, and boy, that can be challenging. So some of us are doing homeschooling, some of us are remote work. You may be still practicing, and you might be in a situation where you're even busier than you were before. And so there are just so many things that we are affected by with the COVID-19 crisis. Now that we've talked about being real and just acknowledging the reality of our life right now, what is the next thing that we can do? And I want to say, out of everything that I talk about today, I think this is the most important. And that is, we need to monitor and manage our self-talk. And when I'm talking about self-talk, that really is that internal dialogue that we have going on in our minds constantly. I read one stat that, we can speak about 300 to 400 words in a minute, where we have about 1,200 words a minute that are going on in our minds. And so we've got lots of conversations going on in our minds constantly. And the truth is, we talk more to ourselves than we do to other people. But this is the important part about internal dialogue and self-talk. And that is that what our thoughts affect our emotions and behaviors. And not only do our thoughts affect our emotions and behaviors, but they affect our physiology. And of course, our physiology affects our health. And so think about it. Let's say you have a really bad day at work. You've got difficult clients you're dealing with, and you've got a boss that's driving you crazy, whatever it might be. And you go home at night and you continue to think about that. And suddenly you notice yourself, you're yelling at your kids and you're yelling at your partner, and you might even be yelling at your dog. And when you think about it, it's probably because you're thinking about, or you're ruminating about all of the things that went on during your day. And those thoughts, those negative thoughts, are now impacting your personal life, your time at home with your family. And so we know that our thoughts really affect us at a very high level. And so what do you do about this? Well, we have to get in the practice of thinking about our thinking. In other words, we need to start reflecting on our self-talk. What is it that is going through our minds during the day? Are our thoughts positive? Are they negative? Are they neutral? And reflect on the things that are affecting your self-talk. So about a few weeks ago now, when all of this COVID-19 information was coming out, I remember one day, it was the end of the day, and I was just in a terrible mood that night, and I was feeling really anxious and really uptight about the whole situation. Well, I realized that I had literally spent the majority of my day talking about, thinking about, and watching information on COVID-19. I was talking about it at work. I was watching it on TV. I was reading on it online. And then I wondered, why am I so anxious at 9 o'clock at night? Well, obviously, if we take in just a lot of negative news constantly, it does affect our thought process. And so one of the things very early on in the course of this, I really started to try to limit the amount of information I would take in on this pandemic. Obviously, we need to keep current and we need to keep up to date and all of that, and participate in the way that we need to. But we need to have some balance in that input that we are taking in during this pandemic. I always like to think about it this way when it comes to our self-talk. Garbage in equals garbage out. So if we are taking in a lot of negative information or around a lot of negative people in our life, oftentimes that comes out in a negative way. So one of the most important things that we can do, whether we're dealing with a crisis or not, is really try to surround ourselves with as much positivity as possible, because that affects our behaviors and our emotions. All right, the next one is practicing gratitude. And when we talk about gratitude, it's really about our attitude of being thankful for the good things in our lives. And gratitude helps you focus on what's working instead of what's not working in our life. And the reason that gratitude is so important is that research tells us over and over again that when we practice gratitude, it's good for our health. Again, these positive thoughts and affect our physiology, and that affects our health in a positive way. And so we know that it's really important to focus on and expressing gratitude. So one of the things I've been thinking about being grateful for is that I have 2 college-age sons, and they are home with me. They've been home with me for a month now, and now I could focus on the fact that I have a lot more laundry and my house is kind of a wreck right now. But I really am very grateful for having this time with my sons. If they were home with me at all, they would be off socializing or working and not spending very much time with me and my husband. And so the last month has been really great. I've had some really fun times with my sons that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And so that's something that I've been really grateful for. And so I ask you, I wish we could all be sitting around at a table talking about this together, but what are you grateful for, even in this difficult time? What are the things in your life that are good? What are some blessings in your life that you can just remind yourself of? I have some friends that have what they like to do is they have a gratitude journal, and they'll just write down every day a couple things that they're really grateful for. And it's something that they can reflect on, and that helps them to just keep those things that are good in our lives in the forefront. So keep focusing on those positive things that you're grateful in your life. So the next one is talking about focusing on our zone of control. And if you've been in my leadership webinars, I've talked about this a few times. And the thing is that, there are a lot of things in our personal and professional life that we do have control over. We do have influence over. And yet there are some things that we have to be realistic that we don't have a lot of control over. And so one of the things that's really important is to try to identify what are the things in our life, both personally and professionally, that we have control and influence over, and what are those things that are more out of our reach. So if you look up in the right-hand corner, you'll see the zone of control diagram, and in that blue area, this is the area, and these are the things that you have a lot of control over. You have a lot of influence over. As you move out of that middle area, you move into the light blue area where you have some influence over those particular situations. And then finally out in that white area, it might be things that you're concerned about, but you don't have a lot of influence over. And so think about it this way, that white area, well, most of us don't have a lot of influence right now about what the government does, either federally or locally, in regards to managing the COVID-19 epidemic. And so those are some things that we can be concerned about, but we may not have a lot of direct control over. On the other hand, if you move into those dark blue or light blue circles, things that we do have control over are things like social distancing or how we operate in our clinics at this time. So we have control over how we're going to communicate with our clients, how we're going to engage with our staff when this is a really difficult time. What are we going to do to reduce exposure? And so, again, the point of the zone of control is really focusing on those things that we have some direct influence on, and really, not to get too focused on the things that are a bit out of our control. The next thing is creating joy in your life. And I think that this is certainly an important thing to do all of the time, whether you're in crisis or not. But when we have some challenging things that we're dealing with in our life, it's even more important. And I think it's important to show compassion, not only toward other people, but also to show some compassion for ourselves. And the idea behind this is to really just identify some things that really bring you joy, that really lift your spirits, because this helps you to increase your resilience when you go through a crisis, and just to stay positive and optimistic. So what are my joy builders right now? Well, there's three things I like a lot, and that's cooking, and I like good wine, and I like good music. And so at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I finish up my day generally. And this is really nice because most of the time I'm on the road traveling in Minnesota and Wisconsin, teaching for IDEX on diagnostic tests. But I'm home right now, so I have a little extra time. So at 5 o'clock, I go into my kitchen, I start cooking, I drink a glass of Cabernet, and I put on some music that I love. And just those simple things really bring me a lot of joy. And so what is it that you're doing each day to build some joy into your life? And are you making some time for those activities? Again, this is really important when we're dealing with crisis and challenges in our life, just to have a moment in every day where we're having a little fun and a little joy. The next thing that I think is really valuable in these difficult times is to find ways to give back. And we can do that in so many ways. We can give back in the form of money or donations or time. And we know that if when we give, obviously, hopefully you are helping the person that you're giving to, but oftentimes just that process of doing something for someone or giving is really such a wonderful thing for the person that is giving. And really, it is a way that we can express our gratitude for all of the good things that we have in our lives. It's been amazing to see all of the interesting ways that people are giving back these days. I think of the teenager in New York City who got together a group of volunteers and they deliver meals to senior citizens who are homebound at this time. I think of the man from the Midwest who in his garage is manufacturing face shields for healthcare workers. I think of the opera singer who can't go do his concerts at this time. Every night at 7:00, he stands out on the balcony of his apartment and he sings beautiful arias for all of the people in his apartment complex. And so there's so many examples of how people are giving back and how that is giving joy to lots of different people in the world today. Of course, in the veterinary profession, there's lots of examples of that, where we're sharing supplies, we are giving up ventilators, we are volunteering, we are sharing our expertise. And so there's so many ways that we can give back. And I encourage everybody to think about what is something that you can do to give and share. And I do want to remind everyone that sometimes these can be very small things. It can be just finding moments to connect with people that you haven't connected with a long time. There are a lot of people, a lot of our friends and colleagues and even employees, they may not have family members or friends in their vicinity, and they are truly isolated. And so I encourage everybody, is there somebody that you know who's really isolated from a lot of other people that we can connect with just to lift their spirits a little bit? Well, how about being creative? That's another great way to help us stay positive and productive. And we've all heard this saying, necessity is the mother of invention. And I've already talked about a lot of ways that people in our world today are staying creative and innovative, whether it be developing, vaccines or diagnostic tests or creating makeshift hospitals or volunteering. Just finding ways to be creative is really valuable. I was talking to a colleague last week, and she works at an ER and specialty hospital, and her team members got together and sewed face masks for everybody on the team so that every employee in the hospital has 3 face masks that they can use to help protect themselves and to protect other people. And I thought, what a creative and wonderful way for this team to really just take care of themselves and other people and just really, I think, increase morale of that whole team. I mean, how neat is that team got together and did such an amazing and creative task that helped in so many different ways. We've talked a little bit about other ways to being creative, about interacting with clients and working with patients. And how about all of the creative ways for learning? And I really just need to give a shout out to Justine and Garrett for the amazing work that they have done with the VETgirl Webinars. I mean, they were way ahead of the game when it came to doing such a super job with offering all kinds of educational materials. But boy, do we really need this now. And so it's just been really neat to see all the ways that we're learning these days in different ways, but in very effective ways as well. And finally, we want to stay focused. So it's really easy to become distracted during a crisis. Our routines are uprooted. We're juggling lots of different priorities. And so one of the things that just a second. So we want to try to stay focused on our priorities. And so this sometimes can be a really good time to just re-identify what are our priorities. If you have a little downtime, think about that from both a personal and professional sense. Really, we're talking about what are those things that are important to you, and asking ourselves, to what extent are we focusing on our priorities, and how can we further focus on our priorities? So for example, you may have in your practice, maybe there are some patient care protocols that you've really wanted to develop and further enhance. Maybe that's something that you want to focus on. Maybe it's really important to you to make sure that your team is properly supported. And so you really implement ways to increase communications and create your communication strategies a little bit more creatively. But the point is really trying to find ways to stay more focused on the priorities that you have in your personal and professional life. And of course, I think it can be really challenging to maintain a normal schedule, particularly if you're trying to work from home, but that's important. Continuing to celebrate the good things that are happening at work and at home, and then sometimes just finding people, personally or professionally, that can help you keep on track of the things that are important to you. And so in summary, hopefully I've shared with you some good tools that we can use when dealing with a crisis or serious challenges in our lives. We talked about 8 strategies, including acknowledging reality and managing our self-talk and practicing gratitude and managing those areas of control that we have in our life, creating joy, giving back, being creative, and staying focused. And hopefully all of those tools will help you as you continue to maneuver through the COVID-19 crisis. I do know that we are at 12:40 and we're a little bit over our existing time that we planned. And I'm going to ask Garrett, do we have a few minutes to share some feedback from our guests? Or should we finish up?
Absolutely. We're both back. Justine, if you want to go ahead, I'm going to unsolo all of us so we can, there we go.
Okay.
We're back. Hello, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much, Sally. I know it's really important content and everyone is really stressed right now. I can see some comments, a lot of thank yous, great information. Just logistic-wise, glad to hear that everyone was able to make it onto YouTube. And that you guys like YouTube better than Facebook Live, so that's good to know. Again, this one is still pending race approval, but please take a screenshot and email it to Anne-Marie at VETgirlOnTheRun.com. And once it gets race approved, we'll make sure to send you a CE certificate for half an hour of race approved CE. So again, thank you guys for doing that. In terms of some of the comments that I'm seeing, what are you guys doing for stress relief? And what are you guys doing at your clinic? Feel free to type those in. We're always looking for feedback. I just want to reiterate what Sally said. I know Sally from Minnesota, and she's one of my cherished colleagues. We really do have to take care of ourselves and our colleagues so well right now. That's a physical movement. It's mental health. It's whether or not you're taking advantage of some of the free things that a lot of companies are providing with COVID-19 right now. I know Peloton is providing their app free for 90 days. There's a ton of fantastic high-intensity workouts that you can see for free on YouTube. There's great meditation apps. There's great meditation videos on YouTube. You don't have to watch it. You can just listen to it. So, Sally, I want to outsource my cooking to you since you like to do it. But just eating healthier, taking time to get outside, so important right now. And making sure, obviously, that we're being smart and washing our hands and using appropriate disinfection, protecting ourselves at the clinic and trying to social distance. Garrett, do you have any feedback or any tips that you're implementing for stress relief?
I know for me, because Sally mentioned, right before right before we started the session, my little one came running in, and my wife came like darting in 100 miles an hour afterwards, out of breath because she saw him enter. I'm like, no, we're not live yet. So I mean, that's all the stress we're facing. We're homeschooling, and I shout out to the teachers every day, but we're homeschooling while we are also not teachers. We're maintaining our lives. We're still working. We're putting on webinars, right? And so for me, my stress relief right now is actually going on a walk. And I know that's not something that was really ever part of my persona before, but I throw my 19-month-old in the stroller. My 11-year-old, of course, is like 20 feet behind me because he doesn't want to be seen near dad. I still get him off a Fortnite, but for me, it's a walk. So I try to go on a 30 to 45-minute walk. Just get outside because we're all quarantined. We're in our houses. We're not doing our normal routines. We're not even doing our normal errands of going to Target or the supermarket as much as we do. So for me, it's getting out of these walls of my house, getting some fresh air, keeping social distancing. And I have to say, I mean, my neighbors, the people around me, we don't come right up next to each other. We're all 6 feet away, but it's getting out of the confines of the box of our house that we live in. That's my sanity right now, is try to get at least a short walk every day. And rain, I mean, that's gloomy to begin with, but when rain keeps me inside, then I'm really upset.
Yeah, that's great. How about you, Justine? What are you doing?
Yeah, I will say it's so much harder with a 3-year-old, a 3.5-year-old. And I see some great feedback. Danny says lots of staff morale projects, gift
Zumba
cards for grocery stores, sports, book reading, sleeping, being with family and my pets. I will say the amazing thing is I think that dogs are being walked more in the neighborhood.
Yes.
I see that a lot. I worry about separation anxiety when everyone goes back to work. I've been doing some just things around the house that I've never had time to. I was joking, I cleaned my baseboard, so my floor, I mopped the floor. We are putting in a garden and just digging for earthworms and going for walks. So I also am really trying to support small local businesses by buying curbside or buying gift certificates and things like that. It's hard. I am not a long distance runner. I hate running, but even I've had to go out for 1 to 3 mile run a couple times a week just for a break with my husband.
Oh yeah.
For mental health. So we're just not used to doing 24/7 with our family. So definitely taking time to FaceTime more frequently with people to check in. And whether or not you're an introvert versus an extrovert, I think it's really important to work with each other and just take care of our colleagues. I love how Sally emphasizes being positive, just resetting the mindset instead of saying I'm stuck at home, taking advantage of Marie Kondo in your house, doing things that you don't normally get to do. I think some amazing things will come out of COVID-19, and we really have to embrace that. It's going to change how we work. It's made a positive environmental impact. It's made huge Fortune 500 companies realize, what? A lot of our employees can work from home.
Yes.
It's made us appreciate our teachers. It's made
my
us
favorite mug.
Appreciate veterinarians more and veterinary technicians and essential employees. For me, I'm an extrovert, so the next time I can, say hello to someone at the grocery store, just thanking them, looking people in the eye, your wait staff, tipping more, so I think there will be some positive things that come out of this. What do you think, Sally?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think that, as I was sharing my personal story at the beginning, when you're right in the middle of a crisis, it feels like it will never end. And it feels so overwhelming. And yet when you go through it and you get beyond it and you can reflect, you see the silver lining. You see those blessings that you just can't see at that moment. And if you allow it, it can change you for the better. And I think COVID-19 can change us all for the better on a personal basis, but even professionally, like you were just saying, Justine, there will be some things that we learn from this that will help us to be better clinicians, better employers, better professionals in general. So I definitely agree.
Yeah, I live in a state where in Minnesota, there's a very wide personal space. And as soon as this is over, I'm just going to hug everybody. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your flexibility of changing from to our YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get an alert for the next video that comes out. Huge thank you to Sally Ryan for coming up with the idea to be able to provide this as a lunchtime talk. Feel free to share this. Again, once we get it rates approved, we will email everyone, and everyone be safe and take care of yourself. And thank you for joining today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.